It's the rundown with me, Joe, and Brandon. Man, it's going to be a good one. We got like a new format. It's going to basically be a brand new show for you. And we're going to be kind of rolling out some new cosmetic features over the next few weeks that we're excited to do. But first off, Brandon, good to see you. It's been 2 weeks. It's been a week too long as well. Seeing that we took the week off last week. How are you doing, big dog?
We are recovered. That is a big portion of it. I was gone. I was out in Tennessee. I know Joe was out busy over the weekend as well. So it was a good bye week. We're all rested. We're ready to go. And especially for the revamp. I mean, this is exciting. This will look very similar to old style format as far as all the images you see behind us, the intro and outro to this show. But there will be some things changing, and obviously more coverage for all of our fun sports as well. We got Tigers and Redwings on the slate for later on in the show, so we're really excited to talk about that as Tigers start today. Red Wings are in the postseason in a couple weeks, and we got CSAA sports starting in the spring. So here we go. Buckle your seatbelt. It's going to be a fast ride, and it's going to be probably over way faster than we want to admit it's going to. So it's just going to be fun, and we can't wait to bring it to you guys.
Yeah, we're excited for it. So we'll get started. It's gonna kind of be CSA first, and then we'll kind of go into pro sports like Tigers and Red Wings. That's gonna kind of be it until the school year ends. So let's get into it. We'll start with baseball in the CSAA. This one's gonna be kind of a shorter preview, seeing that it has not started yet. It's gonna be going. I think April 3rd is the first game for a lot of people. I know Big Rapids is gonna be playing against Petoskey, and then we got a few other teams that are gonna be in action as well. But CSAA, I feel as much as I don't want to sound super biased, Big Rapids is a team that just has a lot of depth that I don't think a lot of the schools can match. But the thing is especially with high school sports and especially with high school baseball, there's a lot of rules in place to kind of negate the advantages that you can have with a stacked team, pitch count and stuff like that, where really CSAA could kind of not be wide open, but there could be a few sleeper teams that make a run for it. But I think Big Rapids right now, Brandon, is going to kind of be the favorite to take home way too early prediction of who's going to be top of the table at the end of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at what Coach Scarpelli has done. I mean, 26 wins last year in his inaugural season as the skipper for the Cards, and we would expect nothing less than a 20 plus win season this year from this team just based on their schedule. They're going to play a lot of tough teams. They're going to be in it to win it, and especially looking at that roster, they're bringing quite a few guys back, especially Riley Venix in the outfield. You got Ty Gilschek on the mound as well. So you got a lot of these star players that are going to see a lot of big time games this season. So, and you look at especially where they left off last year. I mean, an early district exit that every single one of those guys on that team remembers that game, and they are going into this season expecting to get past that point. I've talked to Riley Venix, I've talked to some of these other guys, and this is going to be a season that they remember. Obviously, with a lot of these guys coming off of a basketball season that ended a little bit shorter than they would have expected compared to the football season in the fall. I mean, they're ready to go. I mean, I've talked to a lot of the guys. They are excited. They are ready to go. They're ready to chase another conference crown, and they want to push farther than that. And that's the biggest goal for them this year, to get past and get to that district championship and even potentially beyond. And right now for their schedule, I mean, they're going to be playing a lot of these tough teams. I mean, just looking at their schedule, I mean, they're going to be facing off against Petoskey to start off the year at home. That's always a really reputable program. The Northmen always are really good, or the Northmen, I should say. Then they're going back over to play Shepherd again this year. It's going to be at home instead of at Shepherd. They're going to go to TC Central. They're going to play TC West on the road. They're going to play a lot of these tough teams. Byron Center, I believe, later on in the year will be an interesting one to watch. But of course, the CSA is going to be certainly one to watch because we've seen these standings kind of shake out a little bit interesting here in the fall and the winter. We're talking about football and basketball. It's been tighter than sometimes we've anticipated. So you never know what teams might step up. We saw Grant really have some good games last year, seeing if they can get the consistency together. You saw Reed City really had a big top-heavy lineup this year. Going to be a little couple of losses in that lineup. How are they going to bounce back with Coach Granis? So that's going to be a big thing to watch. And then you got some of these sleeper teams as well that pulled off some big wins, like Lakeview and Kent City last year. Will they take the next step up? Are they going to start fighting to see if they can get in that spot? It's going to be very interesting to watch. We can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned Grant and Reed City because I mean Reed City's got Max Hammond, who's going to Chip. He's going to be a Chippewa in the fall to be playing baseball. And then Grant too has a very solid rotation. I mean Rory Fish is a guy who I think is sitting high 80s with his fastball, and he's got some solid stuff. I mean I've talked to him a few times. I mean, Grant's got a solid little group, a solid group of seniors that can kind of lead that. But I think, especially like we said, Big Rapids and Reed City and Grant, I think are going to be the three at the top. We're going to be fighting for that title at the end of the year. But that's going to be the little preview for baseball. You can check out, I think Reed City starts up April 2nd, as well as most teams do. And then Big Rapids is going to be on April 3rd. So keep an eye out on it. Next week, we'll kind of be talking about it as well. I think we're going to try to have the episode on the 3rd or the 4th. So that way we have some games to talk about. I think that'll be a good idea. But let's go over to softball. It's kind of the same type of situation. Brandon, I don't know if you want to take over here, but softball is looking like it's going to be a pretty solid shakeout for the CSAA.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at where these teams sit, and it's a very similar stack up. You see Big Rapids at the top, obviously last year, 32 wins, an incredible season, falling to Gaylord
It's
in the Region
insane.
9 final. I mean, you just look at what they did last year, and you're like, wow, this is how can they back this up? How can they run this back? And they're bringing back quite a bit of that lineup, and especially with Melissa Warren. She's going to be headed to Toledo this fall to play there as a Rocket, and she's going to be heading that lineup. And you obviously see the depth on the mound. Defensively, they are so good defensively. I think we talk a lot about offense, pitching, but defensively, they don't commit a lot of errors, and that's what Coach Thompson's team has done so well. Is they don't give any opportunity for opponents to necessarily win those games. They play their best game and make the other teams have to play their best game. They don't give them any inch to try to get back. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they had some tough games last year. I mean, Nuevo was certainly one that I remember looking at the recap. I mean, I think it was two-run games. I mean, you looked at Big Rapids' schedule. I mean, a lot of those games didn't last 6 innings. They were done in 3, 4, 5 innings on a mercy roll, but Nuevo was certainly one that stuck out. I mean, they had a two-run games, I believe, looking at my notes here. It was 6-4, and then it was 7-3, but it was still really close games there against the Lions, and that was at Big Rapids as well. So how Nuevo reloads, I'm not necessarily sure what their personnel is like. Obviously, we'll get to know once we start to see these teams play here in the next couple of weeks. But Grant's always going to be a tough team as well. They can get the bats hot and be a really dangerous team. Reed City as well is taking a step up. You can see Chip Hills is going to start making their way back up. So I think that's going to be certainly fun to watch. And I think we're just going to see what teams are really going to stand out on the mound this year. I think we saw a lot of the bats last year. We saw a lot of high run games. Now, how's the response pitching wise in this conference, especially when you're going to have to play some of these tough offensive teams like Grant, like Big Rapids? How are these teams going to respond with their pitching staffs and their rotations? I think that's going to be a big thing to watch, and especially with this unique weather situation. Obviously, right now, I believe recording this right now, it's 32 degrees outside here at the end of March. That's something that's expected. We could get snow next week. You never know at this rate.
Good.
But the biggest thing is, how are these arms going to respond earlier on? Because there's going to be a lot of emphasis, defense, on the mound, throwing strikes in this conference this year more than ever, I think, because of how much run support was boosted by offenses last year. How is that going to be counteracted? I think that's going to be something very interesting to watch, and especially with the weather we've had, there's been chances to get outside, and I think a lot of these teams now have their staff a little bit farther ahead than you might have had in years past just because of that warm weather. So we might start to see some of these lower scoring games right off the get-go, and it might take a little bit longer for the bats to get hot later on in the season.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. To be honest, I don't really have anything to add. I mean, hey, that's why we get you. You're the analytics guy. You're the guy that knows what's up. But that's going to be it, I think, for our CSA kind of preview. Like I said, our episode next week, I think we're going to try to make it so that way we have a few games to talk about. So it might be a little bit later on in the week when we release it. But now going into kind of the pro sports circuit, Tigers baseball, as we're recording this, is on the 28th. We are recording this on the 28th. So I think in a few hours
Yeah.
is opening is going to be the first pitch. So we're excited for Tigers baseball is in a spot, Brandon, where we are so bad that we have a chance to be good because everybody else around us is also so bad. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but the AL Central is arguably the worst division in baseball right now. But that gives us a chance to really make some noise and have a lot of improvement against other bad teams. So I'm kind of loving where we're at.
I think that is a very good observation, and I'm pulling up the standing projections right now just to double check here, because I believe if you look at the projections, there is no other team I believe that's going to average under 85 wins for a potential division crown, which granted, there's 162 games, so that would be maybe 2 to 3 games above 500 as a division winner. And the only two divisions are the NL Central and the AL Central. So I don't know what the Central division's got going on. We need to step it up
It's this
both on
weather,
the NL
man. It's
side.
this weather.
Yeah, it's just crazy. But I think right now I've looked at a couple sites. Detroit is hovering right around the second, third spot. Some even have first, just based on obviously we're going to look at Minnesota as the team. Obviously, what we saw from them last year, we can expect them to try to be at the top again this year. They brought a lot of guys back, and they got really a core lineup. You got Correa, you got a really nice staff as well with arms. But I think when you look at where this team is at, Detroit wise, I think you got to have a lot of confidence going into this year because we saw last year this team was not necessarily as star-studded of lineup. We obviously saw struggles from Spencer Torkelson. We missed Riley Green for a good portion of the year. We had a lot of guys going up and down. I mean, this was one of the years we brought so much movement when it came to transactions from triple-double A to the majors. And now this year we got a really good crew that feels like we kind of have our lineup set in stone, right? We get Gio Urshela in a deal to get him at third base. Obviously, Cole Keith is going to be one everyone's going to be watching at second base with his bat. He's been pretty good this spring. But then you obviously got Riley Green back. You got Spencer Torkelson. Maybe Javier Baez can somehow find a pop in his bat. Maybe he can get used to the contract. I know every fan is trying to get him out of there as much as possible. But
That's it. That's if he doesn't swing at a baseball that's like 20 inches outside of the zone. You know what I
That's
mean?
true. He needs to work on his plate discipline, that's for sure. But I think the rotation is going to be one of the biggest things because that rotation, what we saw, I mean, from potential of last year, right? Obviously, Casey Mize, you were going to be seeing potentially a really good season from Matt Manning, who had a lot of hype going into the season. He's not even starting on this year's starting lineup out of the five-man rotation. He's going to be starting down in AAA, I believe. But you obviously have Tariq Skubal. Kenta Maeda signs a short-term deal with us to see how he can prove himself. You got Jack Flaherty, who was a phenomenal arm a couple years ago. He's had a couple skittish seasons. He's obviously had some injuries that he's worked out, but his spring has looked fantastic. I mean, we're probably one of the best out of all the guys on the staff. And then you got Casey Mize. Reese Olson's going to be one to certainly watch at the 5 spot. And then we have Matt Manning as well that's going to be developing in the minors. And then you obviously got a couple guys as well new in the bullpen that we can see. And I think that's just going to bring a lot more comfort going into this season for AJ Hinch and that pitching coach crew because of the fact that we got everybody healthy, which is great. But now I think we have even more depth for that potential of injury because we were going to last year we had to bring up Bo Brisky to get in the starting rotation. We had to bring some of these guys. Faedo had to throw a lot of innings, and these are guys that are great to have, but we don't want to have them necessarily be throwing every single week because obviously that creates more injuries. You've got to keep these bullpen guys healthy and on the right track so they can stay healthy the whole season with those short terms of innings. But it's going to be a fun year to watch. I can't wait to see what this rotation has. And if the bats can get hot and stay hot, that's the biggest part. We saw the pop potential last year. We just need to see the consistency out of this group. And that would be the difference between 75 wins and potentially 87 to 90 wins and a division crown on the line.
Yeah, it's going to be big time. Not to mention you got guys in the farm system who are going to be able to make their way up. And pretty much, I feel like we're going to see a lot of debuts or a few debuts this season, especially Jace Young. I feel like he's going to have some big time games in the minors. I mean, I've seen him at the Whitecaps. The guy hit a ball, I think 500 feet at least. So there's some promising futures to it. But the big thing is just making sure that injuries kind of stay off the table a little bit and the Tigers just kind of try to find their stride early on this season. We're also going to try to get JT on because he's our resident Chicago White Sox guy. So we're going to try our best to get him on, but we'll see if schedules can work out. But they are playing the White Sox today. They got a solid schedule for this first few weeks with the Mets as well coming up. I'm excited for it, Brandon. I knew you are too. But hey, AL Central, wide open at this point, and I think Tigers are going to be able to take the reins here at some point. We'll see how it goes. Or it could just be a dumpster fire and a whole bunch of injuries, go crazy, and Javi Baez still just doesn't know how to swing a baseball bat. But either way, we're going to try to figure it out.
Yeah, it's just going to be a tell of the tale. But I think especially, I mean, there's a lot of hype in Detroit right now. I mean, you look at especially where the Wings are at. We'll talk about them in here in just a little bit. The Lions will be starting up with the draft here in late April. So maybe just a little bit of that buzz from this year, that momentum might carry over into Comerica Park, and we could see something special.
Hey, when a team is doing good in Detroit, it is almost like nothing else. I tell you, Detroit has one of the best. I think the state of Michigan has one of the best fan bases when it comes to teams doing well. Because I mean, look at the Lions. We were so bad for so long, and finally we get a chance to show out. Hey, it's almost game over, and especially with the Red Wings being back, Tigers I feel like are on. They're putting the right stepping stones to get to that point. So we'll see how it plays out. But you mentioned the Red Wings, so let's go talk about them. Situation right now is a little bit dire. 11 games left in the season. Today at 7:30 on Thursday, they play Carolina, who's a good team. We need to win. I think it's 6 or 7 of the last 11 to lock in a playoff spot. If we don't, it's pretty much probably not going to happen. It's a close race. It's a little bit rough. We have Larkin back. We've been playing well, but 6 out of 11 is a tough thing to do, and it's not easy.
No, it's not easy at all. And I think especially that Tuesday game, obviously against the Caps, felt like one of the biggest games of the year. And it was certainly lived up to it. I mean, we talked to the overtime game, unfortunately falling in that one 4-3. We stole a point as opposed to going up with 0 losing in regulation. But that just kind of felt like a morale. It just kind of really gave us a gut punch. And now, how's this team going to respond? Right? They're going to play a couple tough teams, Carolina. Then they're going to play Florida on Saturday. I mean, those are two really tough teams to really prove yourself as a playoff contending team. But I think especially, I mean, we talked about the streak a little bit after our visit when we went down there. The trip down there was the infamous patch debut game where they ended up losing 7 in a row. It
Get
was
rid of
very
it.
unfortunate. I still have that hat in my closet, Joe, but I haven't worn it ever since the streak began.
I got it too, but man, get rid of it.
Keep it away for now. But yeah, I mean, ever since we snapped it, obviously the win against Buffalo was absolutely huge for the program, and we won 3 of the next 4, and then we were like, well, here they come. We're right back in it. You know, Dylan Larkin was a little bit on the bumps. Now he's back up, being healthy again. Obviously, DeBrincat snapped his point streak, or I should say, snapped his pointless streak and got some points back for us over the last couple of games. But I mean, when this top 2 lines can get going, I mean, we can win every single game. The defense was kind of the concern because obviously we were scoring a couple. I mean, we were scoring 4 goals a game, but defensively would give up 6, 7. They were just in a little bit of a slump. Now they've seemed to really kind of settle back in. They've played much better over the last couple of games, and it's very noticeable, even though you might look up online and say, well, they're sticking up 3 goals. They look better. This team just looks better. They're playing better than they did over the skid. It kind of looked like they were lost puppies over that skid. Now they're back. And that's one thing that's huge going into these series. But I think it's going to be huge. I think you said it, Joe, 7 out of 11 probably we're going to have to bank on. And obviously the Caps are going to have to lose a couple games along the road, hope maybe get a skid off themselves. But it's going to be interesting to watch. And this team is certainly going to have to step up in a huge way and start making a momentum push because they're going to want to bring Hockey Town back for the postseason. They're going to have to pick up some big wins, and they're going to have some tough opponents when we swing over into April. And they're going to need to get some big wins, and they're going to need to connect them together in order to get to the postseason and play for the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, it's not impossible by any means, but still we got some tough ones coming up with the Panthers, the Lightning, the Rangers, Sabres again. It's not going to be easy, all right, but we still got a chance for it. But I think especially you look at it this season at least, a lot of people were expecting to make the playoffs, but it wasn't really in the plan. I mean, I know that we don't have. I mean, if you look at our defense, it's really only one line. Sherratt and Sider have been the 2 guys who have been able to really make the most noise. I mean, Edvidson getting pulled up. You also have the Mata and Gossespear combination as well. This season, it was like if we make the playoffs, this is going to be an added bonus, but that's not the expectation. But honestly, I think next year, give it a little bit of time, give Yzerman some more time to kind of make some moves and really pad that defense and maybe get a few more goal scores. I feel like we're going to be absolutely fine. But still, 6 out of the last 11, we need to win. Will it happen? I'm hoping for it. I'm going to be watching every game, but we'll see how it does. That's not an easy task in the NHL.
No, not an easy task, but we look forward to seeing it. I mean, we were down there at LCA. The fans are still in this thing, and I think that's the huge part. I talked to Ken Cal a couple weeks ago, and he was saying, man, it just feels like the whole city is just waiting for that breakout run. And that's really kind of how it felt over that slump because you saw a different team And now we've seen a much better team. And now the hype's getting even closer, you know? Like, I mean, we're still in it. We're only a spot out of the wild card right now behind Washington. So obviously a couple of teams are kind of creeping in behind, but it's really up to us. We control the destiny because I don't anticipate Washington's going to go through and win the next 8 or 9 out of 11 for them. Or I believe they'll have 12 actually, since they have one more game with us for that extra point. But I don't think you can anticipate a run like that. So the door's still open. And it's going to be control your own destiny if you're Detroit. And especially having 4 games out of their last 6 or 7, I believe that'll be at home. That's going to be super huge. And I think that's going to even help get them even closer with this fan base riding behind them. But they're going to have to play defense. I know we are confident in them scoring the puck. We just got to see some good defense. We got to see them scoring 4 to 3 goals a game, and we got to hold them to 2 or less. And I think that's the way you got to go into these games, because not only to get into the playoffs, but if you're going to play in the Stanley Cup playoffs against some of these top seeds as a lower wild card, you're going to have to limit scoring. And that's going to be the biggest key for them. So why not start now, build this run, build that confidence, and hey, let's see if we can get Hockey Town back.
I would love that very much. I think they're waiting to bring the Hockey Town on the ice until playoffs, but we'll see how it plays out, especially with the remaining schedule. I think that's going to be it for this episode of The Rundown. Thanks for joining us. We'll kind of be tossing out some brand new stuff throughout the next few weeks. Kind of don't want to hit you all at once, get you overwhelmed. Just want to give you a nice little, I guess, ease into the changes that we're going to be bringing over the next few weeks. But Brandon, great episode. I mean, you want to say anything else?
I thought it was great. Hey, you also did a great job as well. So hey, we're
Hey,
doing some
thanks,
good
man.
stuff.
I appreciate you very much. But yeah, we'll be back next week. I think it's probably going to be a Thursday or Friday episode. So we have some stuff in the CSAA to talk about. But until then, have a great weekend. Tune in to the Detroit sports that are going to be happening this weekend. Cannot wait for it. Times are changing. We're getting ready for it. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.